Okay, our interview, our meeting, is going to be on dating. Dating. And your dad allowing you to date. Okay? So y'all can relax. Relax. Yeah. So, India, I understand you are 18 years old.
Yes.
And Asia, right? Asia. You're 13 years old. And you guys are not dating right now? No? Have you ever dated anybody? No. Okay, Dad. What are your thoughts about them dating?
I prefer them not to date. I wouldn't like them to date right now. They got so much stuff in life they got to concentrate on that dating would interfere with. And I prefer them not to date right now until they're older.
I'm sorry, I can't. What do you say?
I prefer them to date when they're older, a little bit older, when they get into their 20s. I prefer them to date in their 20s.
In their 20s.
Yes.
And that's traditional. I was going to ask you, at what age? Because you have a son too, right?
Yes. And
Yeah.
the same thing will go for him in his 20s also.
Why so old and not like late teens?
Because you can establish yourself, you know who you are, you have sort of an identity at that age to me, and the chances of you being misled by someone are a lot slimmer when you're 20, and that goes for the male and the female.
That's true. What about the dating experience though? Like for them in their teens, most teenagers,
I mean,
I say teenagers.
We don't have associates and friends of opposite sex, but as far as dating, I mean, you know, what's that? You know, going out to the movies and things like that. I just think that's an experience that should be saved for later on in life. But they can't have friends of opposite sex.
Or they can have male friends.
They can have male friends, yeah.
Can the male friends come over to their house?
Certain occasions, yeah.
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 So that's good, girl. So give me a ballpark age.
Age for what?
Did you say 20 something?
Yeah,
Early 20s, mid 20s,
almost
30s.
That has to be, when they turn 20, exactly 20 years old, then they are more apt to make decisions and be aware of certain things.
All right.
They will have kind of mastered knowing people.
Okay, so the 20-year-old age frame includes your oldest daughter being in college, so she can't date while in college.
I expect her to date while she's in college.
How you feel about
a
that?
date going to a dinner, a date going to a dance, a date going to a college function, that's not a problem. But, I mean, we have our traditional definition of dating, which was, you know, take her and him or him and her go to the movies or, you know, go out to dinner or something like that. You know, still with that traditional kind of dating, I'd say it has to be older than 20 years old for that kind of dating. Because that's when things get intimate.
That's true. How do y'all feel about that?
Well, I see my dad's point of view in dating during like early teens and stuff because it, like what I've seen from my friends, it does distract a little bit from schoolwork. But at the same time, sometimes you feel a little left out as compared to like your friends, you're seeing like what everybody else is doing around you. So I guess it's good in the long run, but during your early teens and stuff, you kind of feel left out. And I'm excited to date during college. Because I feel like at this point in my life, I kind of mastered self-discipline. I hope. So, yeah.
That's good. And also, with a lot of the teens, too, nowadays, You get to avoid the pregnancy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. How many of your friends got pregnant?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
How many?
Like 2 or 3. I don't know.
Wow. Yeah. And this is at what grade?
Junior year.
Your
Junior year.
Yeah. Or did the girls graduate
Yeah.
with you? They did? So that's good for them.
That's it for us.
What about you, Asia?
Well, actually, it's my dad. He felt the dating age being up higher because all these younger teens are more irresponsible and they don't know how dating works. You know, like you said, all of them getting pregnant early. That's a lot more frequent now, especially with younger teens. They have no self-esteem. They don't know anything. They learn about it. So once you get older, you're more, I'm upright for this. I know how to do it. I know how this person is. I'll just go hang out and be friends and stuff.
See both parties. That's why I say it's not to be done at such a young age, because their definition of dating involves other stuff. That's what the definition of dating, a successful date for them is. And when you get older, you understand that's not what it's about. So you wind up not having a bunch of oopses if you wait later.
That's true. And you say you feel the same way about your son.
The same way about my son. A lot of people
Now,
think
a lot
of people think because it's a boy that it should be different, but I felt that way too until I actually had my son. Then it changed when the reality sets in that he's here. You're just as protective over him as you are the girl, as far as him going on a date at such a young age. So.
That's true. That's true. He can, like, with the girls, of course they can get pregnant. We don't want the girls to get pregnant, but the boys, they can get a lot of girls pregnant, so, yeah. 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 I don't know. So, when you do start dating, what kind of guys you think you'd be interested in?
Cute ones.
Of course, they have.
I like intelligent guys, really intellectual guys, and funny. They have to make me laugh, and like they should enjoy the same things I do. So, like drawing and playing video games. I would like him to be more like a friend. Like I can hang out with him just as a friend. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. We got a question for you, Dad. This is a worst case scenario. Worst case scenario. Should one of your children sneak and date, right? Because it happens. It happens. And one of them either get pregnant or get someone pregnant. What would you do?
That's a tough question. I wouldn't, about the only thing I can be in control of is my girl and my reaction to them. I wouldn't want them to have a child. That's the reason I said when they turn 20, if they date when they turn 20, it's a little more acceptable than it is as a teenager. But I would have to question my morals on the abortion thing.
It would be an option?
It would be an option for my girl.
Why?
As far as the son. Because that's my control. That's something I can control in my household with a decision. It would be a tough decision, but in the long run, they would thank me for it. And as far as the boy is concerned, there's really nothing I can do with him because that's not in my control. All I can really do with the boy, if he's father.
Mhm.
That's the only option I had there, because I can't jump into another family and tell them how and what to do with their daughter. So it's going to be emotional either way. The girls will be hurt because they had an abortion, and if the girl decides to have an abortion that's dating my son, then he can be emotional because maybe he was looking forward to being a father. But, you know, once again, that's something that's not in his control, being that young of age.
Mhm.
And dating as opposed to being married or in a serious relationship. You know?
Now, you said you spoke about abortion. Would you consider maybe keeping it and raising it while the children finish school? Would that be an option?
I would do that because it's still going to be not burdensome on them. It's still going to be a responsibility that they have regardless. So while they finish up and do whatever, they still know they have to look at that responsibility. Also, they'll be alienated from the child. So they're never.
What about long-term effects?
The long-term effects of what? I mean, either way you're
The
going to
decision to abort.
either way you're going to have long-term effects because they're not going to have a relationship with that child. If that child is raised by their grandparents, then you're limiting at the most crucial and critical years of that child's life, the relationship with their parents. So either way, it's going to be
A difficult choice.
it's going to be a difficult choice that's going to have consequences. So
That's true. That's true. Some people have do you guys know of anyone that got pregnant while in school that either kept the baby or choose to abort the baby? Do you guys know of anybody?
Yeah.
You do, Asia? Both of y'all do. Tell me about it.
My friend Amanda, she was dating early, and
And what grade is she in?
she was in
Eighth grade.
and she snuck behind her parents' back and started dating, and she got pregnant. And she took the pregnancy test, and she found out she was, and she ended up getting an abortion.
How'd she feel?
Because she felt really sad about that. That she regrets doing that.
She regrets it. How long has it been? How long ago?
No, that's not.
So it's recent. What about you? Oh, yeah.
Don't know anyone who's had an abortion that I've heard of having an abortion. But there are several people that I know who are pregnant. They're senior year. And as far as I know, they're keeping the baby. And I think their parents are going to raise it while they go to college.
So how are you doing?
Well,
Being new moms,
some of them
taking
are,
on like an adult responsibility.
some of them are really excited, surprisingly. They're really excited and they're ready for motherhood. Like, you know.
When you're 18-year-olds.
And which I guess I can understand a little bit, because at least you finish high school, you know, and you're ready for your life. And I guess some people are just ready to have a family.
So what? How difficult you think life would be for those moms, financially, you know, with all the responsibility of having a child getting up in the middle of the night, and they're like 17, 18. The cost of diapers, the cost of clothes.
I think it's going to be shocking. They're not ready. Unless they were there, like, if they had a little brother or sister or something, to help their parents with them, or her. I feel like it's going to be really shocking, especially if they're juggling working and raising a kid, or working and going to college. I feel like they're going to be really stressed out, and at several points regret that they had the kid. And, you know, just didn't, and they just didn't get pregnant during high school. So we're saying women got pregnant during high school.
I have a question for you. Another question for you. With those young ladies that have the babies, Are the guys still there? Because usually the guys are there at the very beginning and then they disappear. So yeah.
Well, so far they are there, but most of the time, the guys run away from responsibility. So we'll see, because they're pregnant now, but the guys haven't really experienced the responsibility of having a child. So they may want to run away from their responsibility.
And that's what I said, with having a son, it's the same thing, because he really doesn't have any say-so in the matter at all. Being that young of age, you really don't have any say-so, because that's still a child with a guardian. So any rights that you may have are pretty much negated.
You know, I would think it would also be difficult for him, not just maybe running from responsibility, but him being scared. You know, because he doesn't know how to be a dad at a young age.
Right.
He's probably never had a job.
Well,
How do you think he feels? He's a 16-year-old father. How do you think he feels?
Balance, he's scared, because now he doesn't know, it's not his call on whether or not she has it, and it's going to be a lifelong commitment if she does have it by him. So he's basically not in a good place, put it like that, because he really doesn't have any control. He's out of control. I mean, at the moment that he had control, he gave it up. So.
I imagine it would be really scary, because he always looks from the girl's point of view when she has a baby. But I imagine for the guy it would be really scary.
Well, the girl is always going to be taken care of.
Yeah.
Because to me, the boy has...
Not necessarily.
Well, the boy has to look at his future. If he doesn't decide to stay with her, he's going to be responsible for paying child support. But the girl, more often than not, everyone rushes in to help the girl. You know, be it family, friends, associates, they come in and help and make sure she has what she needs.
But you know, in a lot of situations, the young woman gets put out of the home. You know, so what about that? You know, it's not that she's taken care of all the time. Sometimes her parents are not happy about the situation, and they refuse to help her and make her get out. So she finds herself homeless. Because a lot of little young girls in homeless shelters, pregnant girls, I know, or a recent one. Yeah. So what are your thoughts about that? That's got to be terrifying, huh?
That would be
That's a turn in the life.
That's a turn in life for them. Big turn. Yeah.
They didn't think they'd be put out the house for it.
And they deeply regret it. But I think in that case, they'd probably turn to the boyfriend or the ex-boyfriend and see if she could live with his family.
Yeah, that's the option.
But if she can't, if his family doesn't like her, then I imagine that would be really scary.
Probably.
Texting.
Just stop it. Yeah. So that's fine. Few more questions. Back to the young lady, because we talked about how the young man can be fearful, and the young lady, of course, what if she was put out the house? She has no help. Although there are a lot of resources out there, you know, but a lot of them are full too, you know, so you got to deal with that factor. But what I want you guys to think about or maybe talk about is what's the fate of the baby? In that situation, you know, how the baby fare, in your opinion?
If the mother would be put out the house.
Yeah, or just, let's say a scenario where the mother's staying with the parents, but the parents just offer her shelter, a place to live. Okay, she got to get everything else on her own. She don't have a vehicle.
She has full responsibility of the baby.
Full responsibility, baby. What do you think about that? And the young man, there's really no help, because a lot of times in that situation, maybe out of fear, whatever the reason, the young man doesn't want to be a part of it, so I'm saying it's not my child.
I feel like the baby would mostly, I guess, he or she wouldn't have a relationship with his mother, and that would cause them some issues, probably from like abandonment, and she's considering how his mother is never around him, because she's probably at school or she's working, and his dad, he doesn't know who his dad is.
If it's a boy kid, boy child, and the child, have problems reaching beyond that. Because it won't be raised right before it has no dad to live in, so.
What do you think, Dad? The kid maybe grew up in poverty.
Yeah, but then again, that kid is gonna learn
Single parent home.
Neglect,
Possibly rejection.
because what's to say, and speaking as a father, if that was to happen with my son, that may not have been the woman that I would have chosen for my son. So she's gonna need adversity if she's even allowed to be in our household. Because there's a different bond between that being your daughter that's pregnant, or that being your son that has another woman pregnant. So it would be very difficult, and I think if you did research, you'll find out more often than not that those girls are not welcome at those young men's homes, because you're altering his life. And even though it took 2 years to make a decision, it's basically your decision to make whether or not you want to have that child. That's the woman. And like I said before, that may not be the person that you would choose as a mate for your son. So as far as letting her in the house, if she's kicked out,
you feel that's not their responsibility.
That's your responsibility to do. And you're always going to be at a tug of war with the family, even if it works out. So.
I also thought about how there's a poverty aspect of raising a child in a single parent home. I feel like the child would also probably turn to crime.
We'll get older, yeah.
Yeah, because the baby wants to support his mom and help her, and if they don't have any money, it's going to turn to stealing, because they probably live in a bad neighborhood. That's all they know.
She can afford it, yeah.
So that's going to ultimately turn bad for the child, because now he has a criminal record.
Can't get a job.
The cycle will probably continue again.
Yep. So, to kind of wrap everything up, so many negative things. It's more negative things than positive. Of course, a beautiful baby's born, right? You know, babies are beautiful, babies are cute, but the cons outweigh the pros in this situation. One reason why not to date early, right?
Yeah.
Why not to date early? Well, we're going to wrap this up. So thanks, Dad. We're just about finished. You guys got anything else you want to say, or before we bring it to an end?
I didn't date early.
Yeah. Well, when you do date, just make sure, you're responsible in areas, and you stick to your goals and your plans. Be proactive in certain situations.
Don't make babies.
Don't make babies. Protection.
Right? Yeah.
So thank y'all.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for the interview. Awesome girls.